Hey everyone, welcome to my presentation, Revolutionizing Reality Capture, the Integration Imperative. What would you say the future of reality capture would be? Some of you might say it's going to be realistic 3D, augmented reality, throwing the flying lighter ball that we've seen in the movies, supercomputers, all the above, right? But what if I told you it actually wasn't just the technology, but perhaps the people behind it? Is it really the technology? Not entirely. We believe it's a combination of the two. Before we go through the presentation, let me introduce myself. My name is Brent Slawnikowski. I'm a business development manager with Bluco Corporation. Let me give you a little bit of history just so that you guys kind of understand my background and why the heck maybe you should listen to this guy and believe what he has to say. I started my career in 2008 and got my degree in civil engineering from Purdue University. Throughout that time, I had started working with small surveying firms and got myself a few internships and introduced myself to laser scanning around 2010 when I joined Falk PLI. Here I worked in the steel industry and a lot of different civil AEC applications for a good 4 or 5 years while I was there, and decided to make a change and switch over to the dark side of sales. I joined Faro in 2016, where I met many of you for the first time. Was at Faro for a number of years in the Chicago region, and around 2022 I decided to start my own consulting firm, which I still have today, working with a number of companies, helping guide them through technology adoption and laser scanning and surveying. Around the same time, I joined Navis as a sales representative down in the Florida region, selling the VLX SLAM solution, and worked there for about a year before I came over to Bluco, which is where I'm at today, working alongside many colleagues I've worked with for years within the manufacturing industry, and also a little bit of the technology side as well. A little bit about Bluco, if you've never heard of us. We're a small company. We're formed in 1990. Here you can see a picture of our first building, 2 employees, 1,500 square feet. We're known for selling welding tables and tooling, right? Fixturing for welding applications. Really a commodity type of thing. And since then, we've come a long way. Right now, we are 50 employees. We have a 120,000 square foot manufacturing facility located in Naperville, Illinois, which is just outside of Chicago. We do our own heat treat, which is a very unique application for some of ourselves in the industry. It's a huge plus for us to be able to offer that. We also do engineering design services, welding, machining, 3D metrology for QA/QC of what we're working on and what we manufacture. So with all the technology available to us, there's some questions we can ask, right? There's questions we're asking now, and we've established new rules for the industry and what we've done over the years, and how we've been able to figure out what the missing links are, the engineering gaps in the industry. What you're seeing on the screen in front of you is just a number of companies over the past several decades that we've worked with and helped develop everything from prototype to full production manufacturing solutions, whether it be small or large parts. It really doesn't matter, but some of the biggest names in the world that you see up here, many of you probably have products from these customers or drive their vehicles, or we all get commodities shipped to us on cargo ships or rail, right? Looking at a few particular examples, right? You can see we've helped design solutions to put satellites into space with NASA. We've helped design solutions to manufacture railcar. Many of you flew to Boise this week, and we were a part of that process and helping with aerospace manufacturing. And then something that's a little bit close to my heart, in the modular construction industry, we've worked with a number of modular construction companies designing solutions for large housing projects like you see here. So you saw all these companies that we've worked with for all these years, but what do they all have in common? The commonality between them all is they all had a challenge or a gap, an engineering gap, if you call it, that we had to help go through that process and unlock what that was with them. More importantly, with all those companies that we've worked with over the years, the process and what we've done over the years, we know works, right? And I'm going to talk through that with you guys here in a second, and how we've overcome those challenges with those customers. So here you see 3 examples. You have a product on the left that typically took that client 1 day to build. You have another product in the middle where production rate was 3 per week. And then the last image you see here shows a process that's 60 days, right? That's quite a bit of time to manufacture something. Going through this process I'm going to talk to you guys about, we've been able to implement and help these companies really trim down not only their production time, but improve quality and improve throughput, and implement these processes not just on these projects, but in more areas within their plants. So in this case, we went from 1 day to an hour to build this product through this engineered design solution. That's a 3x, right? So when we're talking about ROI and having a discussion with some of the key decision makers, this is kind of what we're focusing on, and what their expectations are and what their goals are as a company. Here we went from 3 to 15 per week with a nice modular solution, which is a 5x productivity gain, substantial. And then the last one, if you thought it couldn't get any higher, we were able to help that customer improve 12x on that solution. So you might be asking yourself, what's the problem? Why isn't everyone pounding on our door to go through and have us do this on all their projects, right? And I think many of us in the room probably say that too about reality capture, and there's a number of customers out there and people who don't believe in the technology or don't know about it, right? It's still a growing industry. But we see the same thing in manufacturing. So let's talk about the manufacturing production process, right? So what you see here is what is typically laid out as a pretty standard manufacturing process. You have your product design, you have your procurement of raw material, you have your machining, your welding, right? If you're in more of the construction industry, it might be carpentry, right? If you're doing prefab, right? Then you have quality control, or hopefully that customer is implementing quality control. And then you have your finishing process, right? So in the case of manufacturing, it's, going through paint and final finishes. If it's in construction, it might be paint, taping, drywall, etc., right? Then you have the assembly, right? And then that product either gets shipped out to site to build, or you have something that's ready to sell. But there's usually one area that we tend to see where there's a gap. And for us, we tend to see this between the procurement of raw materials and machining and welding. We call this the engineering gap. And this is where work holding comes into place. Now, work holding might be a new term to you. You've heard me use the term modular, fixtures, welding table. Work holding encompasses all of that. Essentially, our solutions that we design are holding a product as it's being built in a very high tolerance environment. It has to be welded in certain sequences, and these solutions have very sophisticated engineering designs to hold these parts in place while these welders and machinists are putting these components together throughout the production process. And this is where we believe and where we often find gaps in a manufacturer's process. So the question is, how do we overcome this gap? How do we prove what we know is already true, right? We know 100% of the time, and all the cases we've worked on, that work holding is generally the key area that has that shortfall or has that missing link. So we've been able to develop a strategy. You can kind of see that laid out here with this 4 puzzle piece. So what's the solution? How do we provide the proof, right? You might be guessing where I'm going with this, right? So I talked a little bit earlier mentioning process, right? So our process that we have been implementing starts with reality capture, right? And starting with a firm foundation, having a digital twin of the facility. Sometimes the client may be able to provide that, depending on if they've already adopted the technology or if they have had a service provider come out over the years and provide that. Now, the downside to that case is if that was done several years ago, everyone in this room knows it probably needs to be redone, right? There's been a lot of changes that have happened. So we always want to try to start with the creation of a digital twin, right? Getting as-builts from the customer. If they already have existing floor plans or existing factory of the future plans, right, we want to see those. If they don't have them, oftentimes they don't. That's something that we'll discuss with them in doing and be able to utilize that data to show them their solution in a virtual immersive way versus not seeing anything at all or just seeing 2D plans, right? And oftentimes, as we all know, the floor plans are generally out of date. In many cases that we've worked on, that is the case. There's things that aren't marked clearly or that are out of place, and we always want to start with the latest and greatest. And then there's the analysis side. Going beyond just the creation of an as-built, on top of finding these gaps in their production environment, is there issues going on in the facility, right? Are you going to be tying into existing structure for your design? Can that structure handle the load you're about to apply to it? So looking at the impacts of that and how it's going to affect the overall production and the implementation of that solution. So what's the problem? Again, what could possibly be holding people back from pounding on our door to get a digital twin of their facility? So let's look at your sort of standard deliverables, right? And obviously there's a lot more that can go to this, but in general, right, reality capture deliverables encompass a 3D point cloud, whether you've used a SLAM scanner, terrestrial scanner, or photogrammetry, right? You have a point cloud that's created. You create a layout, right? 2D, 3D, doesn't really matter. Create the BIM model, right? Maybe there's some factory of the future that's happening there, right? With implementation of the OEM models and some simulation. And then you have the analysis side. We've found that there's a digital gap, right? So we talked earlier about an engineering gap. We found a digital gap as well. And what a digital gap is not having a digital twin, not having accurate as-built or plans, unfamiliarity with the environment because things have changed, right? Countless manufacturing facilities we've gone to that have undergone change. If they don't have a digital twin strategy around or reality capture strategy around their process, oftentimes we're going to see that data is out of date and there's unfamiliarity in the environment. Why is there a gap though, right? Some of the reasons that I've seen over the years is, well, you have people that still don't believe in the technology. You have people that aren't familiar with the technology, or you have a cost, budget, CapEx issue, right? They think it costs too much or they can't get the CapEx approval. I think the bigger flaw though, or the bigger gap I should say, is a lot of times people don't want you pointing out their flaws, right? A lot of times in those cases it's a reactive situation, right? I recall working in the steel industry for many years and getting phone calls to go out scan because we have a problem. The production lines either stopped or it's about to stop, and we have to fix this problem right away. And I've been a big proponent of trying to promote the idea of regular maintenance, right? Scanning and going back to the analysis side and really understanding what other issues are going on in that environment But a lot of times I think there's a lot of hesitation because you have people you're working with that really just don't want to point out their flaws, right? Now, when you take all this together, right, you establish this connection between all these components of the deliverables and the digital cap. Looking back at that cube I showed you guys earlier, now you're seeing the other side of it, right? So data and analysis. So again, how do we overcome this gap? How do we prove what we already know is true? We know 100% of the time that implementation of reality capture is one of the keys for us to unlocking what that exponential improvement is for those customers. But again, despite all that, why does that gap exist? Oftentimes, we believe it's what's being asked of the provider, right? I've often seen over the years, even myself and offering scanning services in the past, right? Just giving the customer exactly what they're asking for, right? Not like going outside the box, and you're very focused on, okay, scan this, create this deliverable, give them what they need, and they're done, right? And that's totally fine. But imagine going to the doctor because you need to go in for a checkup, or maybe you have something going on. They run a bunch of tests. You get an X-ray, and the doctor just hands over the X-ray and the test results and doesn't explain anything to you. A lot of times that's what I see in the industry as a deliverable, right? So the customer often, gets part of what they need, but they don't really understand what's happening. There's no explanation. So they leave frustrated. It turns them away from believing in the technology or hiring another provider that can actually do the service very well for them. Or worst case, they end up hiring a second provider, paying twice or three times as much as they should have on the initial get-go, just to get the data that they actually need and have a service provider that's providing sort of that consulting angle to them. So what's the solution to this? How do we overcome this issue? We're about to kill two birds with one stone. So when you take that cube that I showed you guys earlier and you bring those four components together, the data, the analysis, the strategy, and the implementation, you get this really powerful solution to be able to bring and integrate all these components together. But there's one vital piece from these four that's missing, right? There's a quote out there from Albert Einstein: the only source of knowledge is experience. So kind of take that in for a second. If you think about it, there's hundreds of companies doing these things now, what we're doing. But when you think about as a service provider, or maybe you work for a manufacturing company and you're their reality capture specialist, or you're their one of their engineers, right? Think about the amount of experience, right? And what impact that has on driving these solutions and making these changes in the production environment. Generally, experience is not something you can buy. That can be well argued, right? We can certainly hire people that are well experienced, but those people that we hire took many years to develop that, right? Experience comes from success and failure, right? You have to go through many failures before you might get your first success, right? And then experience comes from seeing how other people do things differently, right? And I think that one for me sticks out the most because over the years I've worked with several hundred different companies, service providers, construction, general contractors, etc., and everyone does everything a little bit differently. And being able to see and what works and what doesn't work, and then be able to offer the advice to others as you're working with them to be able to kind of skip those shortfalls helps them kind of get up and running, get to market faster with what they're trying to do. So when you wrap up this integrated process with a team that really knows the customer's business, we believe you've really got a game changer, right? You've got what we call a solution architect who can use all these tools that you're seeing up in front of you and be able to solve those problems. So key takeaway one, solution architect, right? I think many of us in the room are solution architects, but really what are those people, right? They're problem solvers, right? It's who we are. It's what we do, right? Now, how far you go into solving that problem will vary, obviously, right? Depends on scope and level of experience, etc. But at the end of the day, we're all problem solvers. Big picture thinkers, not thinking in this very narrow focused box, but thinking outside the box to really be able to have an impact on the customer's process that you're working with. And then most importantly, relationship builders. This is something that's stuck with me for many years, and being able to build a really good relationship with a customer that trusts you, that believes in you, that calls you because they know that you can help them succeed and help get their problem solved very quickly. So we've covered the why behind the integration. We've talked about the solution architect. Now let's get into the what now, right? What's a full service product look like that you're offering, and how do you do it? So we take those 4 key components that we talked about earlier, plus the experience, and we package that into a solution. And this is what it looks like at Bluco. So we talked about the reality capture piece with Blue Twin is what we call it. That's our digital twin, our data side. So that's going to include the reality capture piece, point clouds, imagery, right? The models, right? The as-builts, the CAD, the Revit plans. So we start with that. We create a roadmap. The roadmap, we call this blueprint. And this includes the strategy and analysis piece. The analysis piece is going to have customer feedback, goals, current challenges, on-site observations that we see during the site visit. It's going to talk about strategy, right? What are the customer's current plans? What are their expansion plans? Do they have other integrations, right? Robotics, cobots, positioners, factory automation, right? And then most importantly, implementation, right? What is the time to market? How quickly do they want to get that product to market? Or are they behind the 8 ball already? Now, let's take a look at how we implemented this process with one of our customers. This customer is Weldcoa. They're a local manufacturer, I should say, in Aurora, Illinois. They do a lot of different fabrication, welding, assemblies, build manifolds, build cleaning and testing equipment, and really do a lot of different builds inside of this facility. We met with them, and when they reached out to us, some of the things that we observed during our discussions and on site were in their welding process, some inconsistent touch-ups, can layout and measuring, where we heard that one before, incomplete welding sequences with their robots. You'll be able to see those here in a minute. They have a large robot system they weren't utilizing, lack of training, right? Having one person trained and not others trained obviously can have some substantial impacts for any type of company. Stacking and laying out, so space planning, right, where they're putting their parts after they've been put together, programming, and then out-of-date floor plans. Here's the existing layout. It's a 40,000 square foot facility, pretty standard layout for your typical manufacturer. You have your parts area, right? Your storage area. You have a couple of welding areas, welding stations. You have your small robot areas, your large robot areas. You have your assembly areas, and then obviously your shipping and receiving, and then some office layout as well. We started with doing a 3D capture with a Navis VLX. We opted for this because it met the requirements for tolerances with the client, and we were going to do this during a full production day. We wanted to minimize our cleanup efforts and impact to the production line, so we were able to get in and out of there within a few hours, doing both the interior and exterior of the building. Got those existing plans and the OEM CAD model from the customer. There's a quick view of what that data set looks like. Hats off to Nubagon for this quick video I put together. Nice little software platform if you guys haven't gotten a chance to try it out yet. But you can see fairly standard manufacturing shop, right? A lot of storage outside, a lot of different space opportunities within the facility for putting in new equipment and some of the options we propose that you'll see here in a minute. There you can see the large robot cell over there to the right, and then going outside in that storage yard. So after we did the scan and started looking at the data, did a quick overlay of the existing plans just to kind of see what we were working with, and as expected, started to see some discrepancies, right? Maybe just plans hadn't been updated, or they were originally planned this way and they were installed a different way, right? So here you can see one of the robot cells in that previous about 3 feet difference compared to what we found in the point cloud. And then looking at the actual exterior walls of the facility, you can see some mismatch there. Now, once we went through and found those, then we started looking at where are the areas that we talked with the client about improvements, as well as where we thought they might be able to make some improvements. So you can see there's 4 areas here. Area 1 being that large robot cell. Area 2 being more of a smaller weld area where you can kind of do a lot of different components in that small station. Area 3 is more of an assembly area, and then Area 4 is where those small robot cells were located at. So we went through the analysis and strategy stage with Weldcoa. We identified those 4 areas that I just mentioned earlier, and started working through some conceptual engineered designs as well as simulations, right? Here you can see some of those running, right? So we take the input from the customer, we take the OEM CAD models, we add in our engineering design and start to run these simulations to make sure that A, we can build what it is the client's trying to build, and B, they can get it done in the amount of time, right? And we can start to look at things a little bit deeper, like weld sequences and where we're going to lay parts, how parts move in and out. So this gives the customer a really good understanding of where they're at in their environment. The other thing that's nice is we're able to take that 3D scan. The top part you can see is just using the floor plan and the models. The bottom part is actually using the existing scan data to give them a little bit more immersive feel. So up top you have the large robot cell. On the upper right you have the small robot cells. The bottom left is that smaller weld area that we talked about earlier, and then the bottom right is that assembly area with what we have is a rail system with floor plate installation. So what do they expect from these results? Higher production, higher quality parts, consistency in production and quantities. Modularity for us is huge, right? One of the unique things to Bluco's product is the ability to be able to change that design for design changes, or if you're going to do a complete change out of a new product that you're going to build, those fixtures can be redesigned and retooled using the existing tools, and really help save the customer money and help get them to market faster because we don't have to engineer a hard tooled solution. And then obviously no reprogramming of the robots. So the proof, well, beyond the visuals we provided to them, we were able to actually invite them out to our validation center. So here you can see some pictures of one of their welders coming out, as well as a few other team members. And we were actually able to take one of the designs that we provided as conceptual and let them build it from start to finish, and really get a feel for it without having to, take time out from the production environment, cause delays or anything like that, right? That's the beauty of what we have here that we offer with our validation center. One of the things that, or a couple things I should say that stuck out during the visit was, since they've implemented their solution, which they ended up going with that small weld cell we talked about earlier, they've been trying to build as many parts on it as possible now. They've been able to build some of their aluminum boxes, their shell casing that they use for some of their systems, without having any fit up issues anymore, where in the past it was constant fit up issues. Already designing new tooling designs for parts, right? That's that modularity we talked about. and then looking at other areas beyond what we propose for additional fixturing. The best part, though, is always being able to get some direct feedback, right, or some nice quotes from the customers. And during the visit, one of the welders that was there, mentioned to Todd, who you can see standing with the group there. You couldn't tell by my excitement every day you worked with me, so you could really just see the excitement and these guys, just in the way that their presence was and how they were talking and how they were interacting, and that's what we really love about this. So key takeaway 2, we're going back to blueprint and that roadmap we talked about. We really firmly believe this is key for what we're providing to our customers, right? If you've worked with civil engineering companies at all, or any local municipalities, and seen how they prepare their master plans, right? If you recall the doctor example I mentioned earlier, getting the x-rays and test results and not being able to really understand what those are, this goes beyond that, right? This is a roadmap giving very key specific details and different ideas and how to address those, what the investment is going to be over time, right? And being able to sort of prove out that solution, right? Selling scanners over the years, I've often found that many times you got to let the customer touch it, right? You got to let them try it out. And one of the things that we believe works really well for us is having our customers come out to that validation center and be able to test out that solution before it's implemented. As we wrap up here, 1, encouraging utilization of the technology to help solve the problems, both known that are being brought to us or unknown by the customer that we're finding, right? What doors open up when you use technology, right? I've often found with reality capture, a lot of doors open up beyond what the ask is. Be a solution architect, not a data deliverer. Make sure we're really, coming in it with that consultation angle, right? Don't be a doctor that's just handing off reports that nobody can interpret, right? Be the guy that explains everything, that looks beyond, the problem or the ask. And then lastly, experience is the key ingredient. No argument there. Going back to the quote I mentioned earlier, the only source of knowledge is experience, and I firmly believe in that. Thank you for your time today, and if you'd like to reach out to us, just pop your phones up and scan that QR code, and that'll get you in touch with us. And appreciate everyone's time today. Enjoy the rest of your day.